letter from a neighbor. Dear stupid cunt, I don't even know her name. I've tried everything. You need to be more considerate of other tenants in the building. I know you live in your own little world, but guess what? You are not the only one that lives in this building. I have drafted a petition for your eviction, and everyone is going to sign it. Pete gave me permission to do so unless you stop banging around, screaming at all hours of the day and night, and dragging whatever it is you drag across the floor for hours at a time. I am going to turn in that petition to Pete and continue to bang on the ceiling. The petition will give Pete reason to and rights to evict you, scummy ass. If you ever come to my door again, never went to her door, it will not end well for you. I will make sure you get thrown into a lunatic asylum and lobotomized like you deserve. Thank you for understanding, you shitty scumbag. That's just one of them. I got 3 of them. And then the other day, I had a whole bunch of pictures on the door of it was me, like a girl eating cat shit. Just the treatment that I've gotten is just horrendous. Thrown out. They sold me a bed bug couch, not intentionally, but it had bed bugs. And I found out just recently that there's a 14-day policy return. They just said they didn't guarantee their furniture. Threw me out when I got a $40 gift certificate. The problem set me back almost $1,000. I had 5 cats I had to hire for someone to take care of. It cost me over $350 for all the bins, the duct tape. I had to throw away clothes. I still to this day don't have a couch. I had to sleep on the floor for a year. I got called all kinds of names. They vandalized my car 3 times. People came close. They drove over the white line, almost hit me with the car. I'm not allowed to go to the local dentist for people, with low income. I thought I had a toothache. It was so bad, man, that I had to go to the emergency room. And that's when they diagnosed me with TMJ. I also have TMJ, which is a neurological condition. You feel like you have toothache when you don't have cavities. I had just to have a deep cleaning. I would have sworn to God they were lying because, I had, in my mind, I know it's my tooth. And they're like, no, Jody, it's not your tooth. It's called TMJ. So they did a MRI to be sure that was the thing. And that's when they found the blood in my brain. The CAT scan showed that the blood had crystallized. And they found the brain tumor above my left eyebrow internally on my frontal lobe. That's why I think that girl's a hacker. How would she even know to say lobotomize? You know what I mean? She's listening to my calls and just really, really, it's stressful, mean people, because I've had my life threatened. The reason why I tried to take my life is because I was being bullied and nobody would believe me and I was scared. So I swallowed 160 pills. Obviously not smart, but people do weird things when they're scared. When they reached out to cops to help, And I told Belinda, she knew. I got to the point where I just didn't know what to do. I was petrified, and I was volunteering at a church at the time. And a week before, I asked if I could help, be online for suicide people. I never thought I would try to commit suicide. So I was told it was bipolar 1, full-blown manic episode. 5 months prior to that, which I had been diagnosed with bipolar probably 30 years ago. This was when I was going to church. Belinda kept saying, I'm not going to give you a ride to church unless you go to Community Partners. So I said, all right. I went in there, and they said, you don't meet our qualifications, So I was fine, She's like, unless you're so depressed, you can't, get out of bed or something like that. Yeah, you don't meet our qualifications for our services. So I was like, glad to hear it, but 5 months later, I did have a full-blown bipolar episode. There were breaches broke. They released medical records that came from the state hospital. So I spent 5 days in the hospital after I swallowed 160 pills. 5 days. You're only in the hospital 2 days when you have a baby. So I was in there 5 days the first time, and then I was sent for almost a month to the state hospital against my will, and I didn't sign the release. So when I came out of there, I was on 8 new prescriptions and rendered me non-functional. I had to go back a second time, and they took me off everything and put me back on my anxiety medication in another pill. So needless to say, they made a mistake, and it was just like they admitted it, or they wouldn't have taken me off everything, and it did a lot of damage. When I was in there, I felt like I had and I got meninges of the brain too. I felt like I had a weight attached to my skull cap. The pain was just like, whoa. And then my hair was falling out, and I didn't know they had chemotherapy pills. And I said, my God, I feel like I'm on chemotherapy because I could smell it. Yeah, I know what cancer smells like. So it was just weird, And then come to find out there really is chemotherapy pills. So they were experienced with all kinds of stuff, But anyways, needless to say, it's been a long, and I was on an upswing, I had finally got back on my feet. I was volunteering for homeless people, and I became homeless, no fault of my own, because I called the cops for help, because my neighbor said, if you don't tell her to go, we're going to call the landlord, and you're going to get evicted. So I said, you got to leave, Mariah, because, she was screaming at my son. And I called, Dylan's like, Ma, call the cops. She's going to get us in trouble. So I called the cops, and the cops don't deal with Section 8. They're like, well, we don't deal with that. And they're like, cut her some slack. She's pregnant. I said, well, if I owned the place, she could scream all day. I wouldn't have to worry about being thrown out. But she ended up living with their grandmother, and me and Dylan ended up on the streets. So, and then I lost my volunteer job, and she says and they wouldn't even help me, and that's what they do, help homeless people. She said, when you find a place, don't come back. And I said, why? And she said, because you're paranoid. I'm like, what? So if I were, that would be discrimination. So I read about how nice people with brain injury or any type of brain injury, whether it's brain tumor, stroke, or whatever it's wrong with their brain, how wonderful people treat them. You know what I get treated like? I get terrorized, bullied. I got an eviction notice because my granddaughter cried once and my son visited me, okay? That's how I get treated. I haven't been able to have a holiday with my family for 5 years because their kids aren't allowed here. When my daughter was in the homeless shelter, I took care of my granddaughter for 2 years, 5 days a week, because she didn't want Chloe sleeping there, so she slept with me. I didn't get paid for it. And, you know, we lived off $50 a month in food stamps. Um, and it was 100, you know, 24/7. I had her for 5 days a week for 2 years. Initially, she said her lawyer said I could get paid. Babysitters get paid a lot of money, but she didn't bring it up again, and I didn't have the heart to bring it up in front of my granddaughter. I just figured she knew I needed help, but if she weren't going to do it, then I weren't going to ask. You know, I wasn't going to push the situation. I was just too weak and sick and just like it was just not like, you know, whatever. I dealt with it the way it was. No appreciation, not a thank you once. In fact, when she could put Chloe in school, she told me I wasn't allowed to ever watch her again or ever be in her company alone. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you're my one ticket to losing her. I'm like, what are you talking about, Delilah? I took care of her for 2 years, and I have witnesses. And she would deny it. And now finally she admits it, but she says I throw it in her face. I go, I don't throw it in your face. But, you know, she said I was privileged to do that because I'm the grandmother. I'm supposed to. Oh, really? Did your grandmother ever watch you once? Absolutely not. You know, that's grandmother's not obligated. You know, to do that stuff. It's not their job. I did that because you weren't getting any child support, and you know, you were living in a homeless shelter. So I took care of the 5 cats, and I got made fun of because I'm taking care of my homeless children and grandchildren's cats. And poor Dylan and Mariah had to sleep outside, you know. And it was a year before Dylan could actually get into a homeless shelter. 5 guys let him sleep out, and he worked there next to the dumpster in the cold winter. It just broke my heart because not a family member would take him in, and they got over the top. Oh, I just better stop. You know I need to get out of here because of the injustices. Tit for tat, Dylan's been in jail. 200 cops got arrested for falsifying arrests, and that's where it all began, and that's why he's in there now from one in Maine. So it's been hell. It's been hell, you know, having your child who was on medication the whole time he lived at his foster parents for 5 years because of a diagnosis, and then to be left, you know, for the wolves, and just picked on and bullied, and his life threatened too. Hit and run, broke his elbow. He doesn't have any insurance, and he was supposed to be on Medicaid, and Medicaid denied him until 26. And the hospital denied financial aid for his arm to get in, you know, a cast. His elbow, even though the doctor said the injuries matched up, they didn't even put it in the paper. You know, a cop even said we should move. You know, he had a concussion too. Someone beat him up, and he's so afraid to snitch. He's always says snitches get stitches. I'm like, Dylan, you know, if somebody beats you up, you got to tell the truth. You can't let people do that to you, you know. But, you know, he felt like a man, or that's like, it's sad, you know. I found out things, you know, from other people that Dylan never told me. It just broke my heart for my son to think that, you know, that's okay for people to do that to him. And no, it's not. And it wasn't, you know, absolutely not, you know. These aren't people that love him. These are people I slept, you know, that would let him sleep out in the cold. You know, it's just like in the snow, in the freezing cold, you know. Like, man, like if you only knew, after my life and the kids' life got threatened and everything went like that, yeah, it was quite disturbing to the point where, and nobody would take me serious. And it's still going on up here. I can't get justice even when I have proof for anything. And they can release medical records, which was false diagnosis, you know, but it made me a target of hate. target a crime, and they're responsible for it's called personal injury. And if I had died, it's called attempted murder. And if I had died, it would have been called manslaughter. You can't bully people to the point, like maliciously do people wrong to cover up for your wrongs and to make them the bad guy. And slander is lies. Is making up false statements. Like I said, I got proof that I'm bullied here. It's been nonstop. I want out of here. The caseworkers have even treated me like shit. Seriously, you have no idea what I've been through. It's been horrendous trying to recover from hell, whatever released that blood in my brain that crystallized, and knowing the other problems that I have with my brain and I had prior. It's been, like I had a great massage for like a half hour yesterday, but and I worked out, I pushed myself, and I'm just so glad that I could do that. At 56, when you walk for 20 minutes on a treadmill and then you sleep like 2 or 3 days, you're like, what's wrong with me, man? Why can't I, why don't I have energy to, why did that take so much out of me, So, I just never know when it's going to hit me. My head feels like a walking dartboard. The pain, just when it strikes, it drains me. And it goes numb, then hot as a rock. And then the pain from the neurological, it's a lot. And to be treated and bullied, because I'm on Section 8 and put down for, some things in my past, and it's just not right, lies and deception have been done to my family, to me. It's been horrendous knowing this. It's been very frightening. And now I'm very defensive. Oh my God, I could write it's not about being able to write a book, but you know what? It's about wanting to get out of here and get into a decent place where I can feel safe and not be taken advantage of because of my situation. Praise God.